right? I'm just addicted to different things,
I like
right?
that.
So to say that you've got to, and you can talk about this as like cravings, right? We all got cravings. You
Yeah.
say your cravings, fight your cravings, willpower, right? Fuck that. Replace your cravings. Replace your bad habits. Replace your bad addictions with good addictions, right? So I was addicted to drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, painkillers, alcohol. I mean, that was a mess, man. It was a rough addiction. And so I just replaced it. Right now, my addiction is going to the gym. Now, my addiction is finding formulations and supplements. Now, my addiction is communicating to my community and impacting and the fulfillment. So I just swapped addictions.
A lot of us that like know who you are, like you've done like some awesome stuff. You've been massively active on social media. You've taken it over. You're the authority when it comes to like fat loss, muscle gain, nutrition, anything that has to do with like health and fitness, right? But the thing is that a lot of people, including yourself, didn't come from that. So just so that we could give like the listeners a little bit more insight of like where you came from and what you're about and like what actually influenced your life. How was your growing up when you were a child, or not a child, but like a young man?
Yeah. So how far back do you want me to take them? You want to take them back into like the middle school, teenage years, or do you want me to
Yeah,
start?
just let us know like where you grew up, and did you come from a lot of wealth, or were your parents immigrants?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So born in California, Orange County, California, only lived there for 2 years. My grandma was diagnosed with cancer at a very young age. So at 2 years old, I moved to Wisconsin because that's where she lived with my mom and my dad. They split up very, very early. My dad moved to Florida. My mom took care of me and my brother with very little. My dad wasn't very supportive at the time. We didn't have a lot of money. My parents were always both entrepreneurs. My mom, in terms of financially, was a less successful entrepreneur, but she's amazing, gifted, loves design, has an eye. The attention to detail is definitely where I get that from her. Up until I was about 7 years old, she took care of us, and then we came to the conclusion, or she came to the conclusion that she didn't feel like she could give us the good life, right? So my dad was remarried, and my mom sent us down, my brother and I, to live with my dad. She thought, if you go down there, you got the family life, you got a stepmom, it's going to be better for you. Heartbreaking, but she thought that that was what was best. And for a decade, right, I was going back and forth every single year, multiple times from Florida to Wisconsin. My dad wouldn't fly, my mom wouldn't fly. So my brother and I, at that young of an age, we would fly. And I remember, and this is where the fear of abandonment comes from, because I've got this immense fear of abandonment that I continue. And so it comes from that, right? It comes from my mom, like giving us up essentially. At the time, I didn't understand what it was. My mom was saying, hey, go do this. And every year, we would go back. I'd see my mom. I'd spend time with her. I'd get back on a plane. I'd go down. And I don't know. I wouldn't know when I was going to see my mom again. So literally, my brother and I would cry our eyes out on that plane. And I just remember that sticking with that, or that sticking with me. And I realize now through some triggers, and maybe if we get there or get into that, we want to let people understand where that stuff comes from. But it's showing up in my life. And so I deal with that. Fast forward, I played soccer in middle school. I played basketball for 4 years in high school. Was never built, never lifted weights. I was thin. I was thinner at that time. And then I got into my late teens. So I made it through high school without having a drink or any drugs. And all of a sudden 18 hit, and this thing called ecstasy. I don't know if you ever were in the
The
ecstasy.
Molly's?
Yeah. Molly's, the Red Hearts, all of it. I remember all of it. And the raves came, right? I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember.
I remember the raves.
Underground raves. So you'd go to a party, and then you'd have the underground raves, and you go to the raves, and you roll or whatever they called it, and then you would essentially go to bed at like 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning. And I did this, and I became addicted to that, and then I started selling, and that turned into a cocaine addiction, and turned into a drinking addiction. And so for my 20s, for that decade, I was doing a lot of drugs, and I let go of my life. I wasn't training. There was no fitness, and I got up to about 185 pounds and 27% body fat, and that took me until I was about 30 years old. And at 30 years old, just previous to that, I had started a business, my previous business. I grew that business to $5 million in revenue. It was a retail business where we sold all the SNL on TV products, the pillows, the choppers, all the different ad gadgets. And I opened up a bunch of stores in the mall. And that fizzled out because Walgreens and Walmart and Kmart started carrying all the same stuff that I was carrying. And so it wasn't fun to come to my store. If Aunt Millie needed medication at Walgreens, she got her slap chop there, right? So that it didn't happen. My store was just like, at one point it was like, you come in, you try the Snuggie on, you do the chopper, you play around with it. It was fun, but it wasn't fun anymore because people could just get it elsewhere. So I had $500,000 worth of mall leases at the time, and I couldn't pay my rent because no one was coming to my store. Retail was dying. And so I had to get out from under it. So literally in my early 30s, 31 years old, I went through a bankruptcy and a divorce at the same time and had to move back in with my mom. And in that span, 6 months later, I found out I was going to have a daughter. This is where my life took the biggest turn it's ever taken for the best. In the midst of all of that, I remember carrying 2 bags of groceries up 2 flights of stairs. I was in my small 1,000 square foot apartment. And I remember getting to the top of that, winded and out of breath. And I'm like, man, something has got to change. It was in that moment that I drew a line in the sand and I started making some shifts and some changes. And that's when I started to explore my spiritual connection, right? I grew up Catholic, but didn't pray or practice. And I started to watch church every Sunday online. So that was one piece of it. Then I started sifting through all the information online, all the different diets. I had tried a bunch previously. I tried low carb and no carb. I remember my dad doing Atkins. I remember the Slim Fast shakes. So I remember all of that. And so now I'm searching for the answer, right? And I come across this thing called paleo, which everybody's familiar about now. But at the time, it was really new. You imagine 7 years ago was when I first stumbled on it. And I thought it was really logical. Like, of all the things that I read, I'm like, oh, okay, well, if you can hunt it, pick it, gather it, catch it, then you can eat it. That seemed logical to me. Now, while I didn't make the entire shift, I was still eating a little cereal every once in a while. I was a cereal addict. Fruity Pebbles was my jam. I don't know about you. What was your favorite?
My favorite cereal, you know what? My parents grew up very like modest. Like, we grew from ranches, so they could only afford like the cheaper stuff, like the stuff that was like a knockoff, and it would be like the knockoff of cornflakes. And I would just add a lot of sugar because it was plain.
Got it. Okay. I had Fruity Pebbles, Captain Crunch for your listeners. In Jose's comment, put your favorite cereal. I mean, we can jam on cereal, right? Remember Cinnamon Toast Crunch? We called it CTC. Count Chocula, Chocolate Rice Krispies. Anyway, I was a cereal addict. And so I made this change, the shift to a more whole foods diet. And while I still had my oven baked pizzas at times, I really made some shifts. And followed by the dietary shifts, I saw some changes. I started doing high intensity interval training in my apartment, my 1,000 square foot apartment, not knowing that it was high intensity interval training. I was doing burpees and renegade rows and just things with dumbbells to get the heart rate up and to get sweating. And in 113 days, I lost 27 pounds of body fat. I went from 185 to sub 150, about 148. Saw my abs for the first time. I was chiseled. And I went from 25% body fat down to 8. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was getting compliments. My family, I remember this girl at a coffee shop that I used to go to. She said, wow, you're looking really, really good. And I think it was like, wow, like people are noticing, like amazing. And then I thought to myself, as I'm going through this bankruptcy and as I lose everything, I'm like, I need to do something. Right? I need to do something. My daughter was on the way and I had this personal transformation, this physical transformation. I said, listen, I said this to myself. I said, if I can do it, I could probably teach other people how to do it. And if you go back to my first YouTube video back 6 years ago, May, and I don't know, have you seen it?
I've seen it.
You're laughing. Make sure everybody, you guys have got to see this video, because if you see my videos now and you see my videos, you'll understand the progression, right?
The evolution.
See the evolution, right? I remember it was a 3-minute ab workout. The video took me like 9 minutes. It was a 6-minute intro. I was so nervous. I was rocking back and forth, when the reality is that I could delete it. I don't remember how many times I recorded that, but finally I pushed post. And that was the sort of the launching into the internet space, the online space. I had no YouTube followers. Nobody was watching. Nobody liked it for, I don't remember how long. And then I stayed consistent, right? It was that video. And then there was a couple other videos, and then Instagram hit, or I found out about it. It was actually a year after I think the platform launched. It hit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So I got on there. I was posting content there. I stayed consistent. And in 6 years, and you know this, right? But for your audience, in 6 years, I haven't missed a day without posting on multiple platforms. Not one day have I missed not putting out at least one piece of content. In fact, I would be willing to say it's more like probably 3 or 4 pieces of content for the last 6 years of my life. And that consistency, it built. And then I had nothing to sell for the first year, right? So for the first year, I was giving out not my approved foods list. I was giving out Fast Start Fat Loss, right? It was a great program, 50 pages, people got results. And I remember in the first year, I put like 150 or 200,000 people on my email list just by giving this out. And then I created a program called Hit Max. Again, not knowing that I was doing Hit a year prior to that, I take all of the stuff that I learned, I put it into a program called Hit Max, and right out of the gate, we fucking crush it. I mean, crush it. I started to remember I did $300 the first day, $300 for the first week, and then I ramped it. I posted more. I started buying shouts, and then in the next 12 months, we did 150,000 copies at $30.
Wow.
Crushed it. And that catapulted me into the supplement space, where we've got 2 supplement lines now. Catapulted me into more of an authoritative figure. I wrote a book last year, a best-selling book called The Sweet Potato Diet. I've been traveling. I've been on KTLA. I've been on various news stations. And fast forward, we're in this space today where I get to impact people all day. Like, I get to share my story, and I get to join other people on their journey, and just the fulfillment and the impact. Going into it 6 years ago, I knew nothing about fitness. And one thing I forgot to mention is in that first 6 months, I thought that I knew that I needed to be credible, right? Because if you're going to teach people, right, you got to know something about it. I knew nothing, right? Other than I had a personal transformation, paleo work, and these renegade rows and burpees got me chiseled. So in that 6 months, I got 5 certifications and just submersed myself in that information, trained and worked under the best of the best. And so I used that knowledge, obviously, to write my book, and to now, and we'll dig into the formulations and why we're so different in all the things that we do. But I'm here, and I'm talking to you. And a year ago, how long ago was it when you were in my MFitU course?
Man, so for the listeners, I was Michael Morelli was my very first mentor, like actual like paid mentor, and then like you really gave me a lot of insight afterwards. I want to say about 2 years ago.
2 years ago, you were the best. You were like one of the, actually, you and Freddie, who's recording this, were my 2 best leads.
Why do you say that versus, because I feel like I'm not propelling fast enough, but why do you say that?
Because you're in it. You're doing it every day, right? I watch you on social media. I watch you on your stories. Here's the thing. We're never going to feel like we're doing it fast enough. It's never going to be fast enough. Never. I'm in this thing like right now. I'm like, we're going through a major rebrand. I got 2 collagen supplements coming out. I got 2 bars coming out. I got a vegan protein coming out. I got another detox organic supplement coming out. I mean, we're doing crazy stuff, and it's still not fast enough. For me, I'm like, let's go faster. So it's never going to be fast enough. But you are going through the motions, and you are executing every single day, and you've got a phenomenal podcast, and you've got a great community. And the thing that I love most about you is that you're authentic and you're transparent, and you really care. I think if above all else, you actually care about your audience and about serving people. And I always noticed that when I stayed at your house, and I don't remember why I stayed at your house. I was there for some event.
I think I said, hey, I live by LA. And I didn't really specify, but I lived like an hour away from downtown LA. And you're like, dude, you said you live like up the street from LA. I'm like, LA is big. LA is really, really big. To get to one point to another, it takes about 2 hours anyways because of traffic. But yeah, that was when you were in KTLA, and basically I just spent about a good couple of days with you in the car, which was like the best experience ever for me. Even just like our quiet time was like the best experience.
Yeah, I remember you opened the house to me. You gave me a bed. You cooked in the morning. I mean, you're one of a kind, man. You're one of a kind, and I'm grateful for the relationship. I'm grateful that you trusted me 2 years ago, and I'm even, I think above all else, like to see you executing and to see you carving out your community and your brand is something that is very validating for me, and I just love it. So
Yeah, man. No, like you did a lot for me. And then, just for like the listeners, so I went through the MFIT. It was about, how long was it? Like about 6 weeks, right?
8-week course.
8 week course, right? So it was like how to build your online fitness brand step by step. And I did exactly all of that. And then afterwards, I reached out to Michael and I said, hey man, I want to volunteer my time. And you opened up you had an office, but it was like an apartment, which is really cool. So I got to crash there and I got to learn for 2 weeks. Yeah, for 2 weeks. And I got to crash and learn everything that you do from the time you get up, from the time you go to sleep. What is it that, everyone in your business does? Got to meet everybody. It was like an amazing experience. And that really like just propelled me and launched me. It really just energized me because, I think that's what I was missing was just like the influence. I needed to see an example so that I could have something to visualize and like really execute on. But the best advice that you actually told me was make something and then just talk about it or sell it. And that was it. Like there wasn't any like secret formula. It was like do it and then execute.
put yourself out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, right? And I know your listeners, you mentioned, I asked you before, who are we speaking to, right? And I think a lot of us want to overthink it. I think a lot of us don't start because we think that the thing that we're good at, the market that we want to get in is saturated. And so we're like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I could get into that space, right? Because everybody's already doing it. Well, I'll tell you, 6 years ago when I got into the fat loss space, there was no shortage of fat loss experts. There was no shortage of fat loss gurus. I got into a very crowded space and I carved out my own because I was vulnerable, because I was authentic, and because I wasn't afraid to share my story. And I actually live it, right? If you know me, right? Everything, my supplements, the things I put in my body, like everything is calculated. I don't put anything artificial in my body. I don't put GMOs. I don't put anything that's not organic in my body. And that goes for all my supplements. Right? I mean, some of my supplements, it will take me 24 months to formulate, and people get like, I'm out of protein right now. This is a good little message for you. We discontinued our grass-fed whey isolate, 5 ingredients, the cleanest grass-fed whey isolate on the planet. But you know how I feel about dairy. And it got to a place where too many people were having good dairy that I just decided to exit. That's $500,000 of auto ship revenue every single year. Just gone, right? Because I don't take it, because I can't suggest it or recommend it. I can't sell it. I just can't do it. And so we've got a vegan protein coming out, and we've got 2 collagen coming out, all are grass fed, all organic. And it took me a really, really long time. So we've been out for a while, and people are like, Michael, like, what are we going to do for protein? And I'm like, it's coming. These things take time. My bars, my formulations, they all take time because of the details and because of the love and the attention that I give everything. Because if I don't put it in my body, I'm not going to recommend it. In order to come into my body, in order to get into my body, it has got to be the fucking best. The best. Otherwise, it's not getting into my body. It's not getting into my household. My kids aren't going to have it. And that means my community can't have it.
Yeah, I remember you telling me and also seeing it. I would actually experience this with you. You were very big in everything about you was all about high standards, high quality. Like when it came to like the foods, when it came to even just the environments we would expose ourselves to. I remember just going to like the best gyms, like meeting the best people, and that was a high standard that you have for yourself. So reflecting of how you are now to how you were before, right? Like when you were in your early days and you had like these like addictions and vices, what is it that was missing and help you transform or find the path to where you are now?
Well, here's the thing, right? I'm still an addict, right? I'm just addicted to different things.
I like
right?
that.
So to say that you've got to, and you can talk about this as like cravings, right? We all got cravings. You say, your cravings, fight your cravings, willpower, right? Fuck that. Replace your cravings. Replace your bad habits. Replace your bad addictions with good addictions, right? So I was addicted to drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, painkillers, alcohol. I mean, that was a mess, man. My mom came down to Florida, in fact, at like 18 or 19 years old, and she saved me. Like she busted in my apartment. I was living with the girl. At that time, I was so gone. I didn't recognize her. I was throwing up in the sink when she found me. And she said, listen, you're coming back with me. She brought me back to Wisconsin. It was a really, I mean, when I talk about my addiction, I want people to understand it was a rough addiction. And so I just replaced it. Right now, my addiction is going to the gym. Now my addiction is finding formulations and supplements. Now my addiction is communicating to my community and impacting and the fulfillment. So I just swapped addictions. If you've got an addictive personality, you know this. Like you're not gonna just stop. You have to. There has to be something, right? And so oftentimes you go from drugs to porn to gambling to whatever it is, right? Now my addiction is like reading books and doing fun things like this. This is where I get that fulfillment, and this is where I get almost submersed and lost, like I did with drugs. Now I get lost in my community. I get lost this way.
So you have that listener that's like on his car and he's driving. He's like, okay, what Michael is saying is right? Like I know I should replace my habits. So how should he go about replacing that habit? Like, how addictions can be very, very addicting and very, very hard to break. What would be your advice to him to starting off and beginning chiseling away from those negative and, those destructive habits and start building in those healthier and empowering habits that's going to make him a greater person?
Amazing question. And you set this up perfectly. Okay. Two things. First thing is it's one habit at a time, right? If you're trying to change 7 habits at once, forget it. It's impossible, right? It's impossible. So one habit at a time, right? And just like we have bad habits, we also have good habits, right? We can amplify our good habits, and we can take a look at our bad habits and say, okay, are these really bad? Are they serving me? Are they getting in the way of my growth? Right? At the end of the day, here's what we know. Progress fuels happiness, right? The more you progress, the more you achieve, the more you reach, the more you learn, the more you grow, the happier you become. And if I get people all the time because, one of the things that it's worth mentioning is I was on 3 different medications. There was a time in my life where I couldn't get out of bed. So I was on medication for ADHD. I was on fluoxetine for anxiety. I was on Adderall for ADHD, and I was on Wellbutrin for depression all at one time, right? And so what I know in that moment versus now is I was depressed because I was focused on myself. Let's face it, right? What is depression? Depression is you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on what you don't have, or what somebody else has and what you wish you could have, right? So it's while I agree that depression exists, it's just a state, right? It's just a state. States come and go. So is it real? Sure, it's real in the moment, but is it really real, right? And so when I talk about this and I talk about depression, in order to not be depressed, you have to grow. And so someone says, I'm depressed, I know automatically they're not growing. They're probably binge watching Netflix. They're probably not growing at work. Their boss probably doesn't appreciate them. They're probably in the rat race. And so they're depressed because they look at their life and they look on social media, which is very easy to do, and see the highlights of everybody else's life. They see the highlights. They look at their life, their small life. They're not growing. They're not progressing. And so they become depressed. The easiest way to get out of depression is to grow, is to open up a new book, is to go have a new experience. And that leads me into the next piece. All right. Look at your habits, look to change one at a time. And the only way that is going to stick is if you set up your environment conducive to your new goals and your new habits. If your environment is stacked against you, you will fail every time. Willpower is finite. You can't will your way through a new habit. What you can do is you can look for new environments and you can set yourself up to thrive in new environments. So look at all of your environments. Take an assessment. From the time you get up to the time you go to bed. What are the various environments? You got your home environment, you got your work environment. Maybe you got to study. Maybe you're studying in an environment. Maybe you're working out in an environment. Take a look at all those environments and the people that are in those environments, and make some shifts and focus on putting yourself in an environment that is conducive for the specific habit or growth that you're looking to achieve.
I love that, and I completely agree with you in like every aspect. I remember I used to help people with like body transformations, like, hey, let's do a 90-day transformation. And then I would see them do well, and then it wasn't sustainable. And they would actually kind of like relapse, and they would be really, really hard on themselves. And then later I started, because I was also, I had my own addictions. I used to have alcohol addictions. I got 3 DUIs. I've been sober already for about 6 years now. And I couldn't, and because of that, I couldn't sustain healthy relationships. Like as soon as I gave up, the one, I call it an anchor, that was holding me back. I was able to liberate myself. I I had my first successful relationship, and we actually just recently got married. And that was like right after. As soon as I made the decision, like I'm gonna stop drinking, and then I began to focus on one habit at a time. The first thing was these vegetable blends. Like everybody knows that you're supposed to like eat healthy and work out, and I began by doing something I hated to do, and then I fell in love with the feeling, like the after effect. Kind of like the same way I tell people, like like when you have beer the very first time, you're not like, oh my god, this is so good, this is delicious. It's more like, oh, this is nasty, but you like the feeling afterwards and have that confidence.
Yep.
So the same thing came with like building the smaller habits. So I completely agree with you in like in every aspect when it comes to that. So after you elevated yourself, what were like your first building moments? Like you started working out, so now you have the physical part, right? Like you're getting those healthier habits, you're eating better, you have more energy. I know that you're very into mindset. What did you do to develop the mindset aspect for your own personal success?
Yeah, so I didn't realize how important mindset was until really digging in and helping people transform, right? Like you said, you get results for a short period of time and then something happens, right? Either a habit or their environment or a party or that one evening where they, splurge or binge and then it just cascades, right? So if your mindset's not intact, then it's very, very hard to sustain. And so now mindset is a huge piece. And I'll sell you the sexy benefits. I think it's market what they want, sell them what they need, right? I'll sell you the best set of abs that you've ever seen. I'll sell you the fastest fat loss you've ever had. I'll sell you the best supplements and lean mass. I'll sell you all of that. But when you get into my community, get into my private Facebook group, we talk about everything and we dial in that mindset. For example, today, my VIP call, every Wednesday I have a VIP call with my VIP group. We talked about relationships, right? We talked about how important relationships are, and I left them with a challenge. And I'll leave your people with a community, your community with the same challenge because I think it's powerful, right? When our relationships are great, isn't life great, right? Your relationship with your spouse, your partner, your brother, your cousin, your dad, your mother. When your relationships are solid, everything else is usually pretty solid, right? We have that need for connectedness, right? As much as we only say, "Fuck everybody," I'm going to do this by myself. We don't. It's not. We are born to connect, and that is a basic need. And so if we can, and oftentimes we want to put blame on everybody else. When we're sending out a certain vibration, usually we're responsible for our relationships. And I left my group with a challenge today, just to give your listeners an idea of how deep we go into the mindset and to the other pillars of life. I said, listen, if you're having challenges in your relationship, and I think we all are, I don't live in a perfect relationship, but what we are doing is we're validating each other more, we're growing more, and we're connecting deeper. We understand each other's triggers, and we're making progress in our relationship. That being said, you're having a challenge in your relationship, and this is for you too, right, Jose? Pretend like these next 90 days, okay? Start today. The next 90 days, pretend like it's the first time you met and it's the first 90 days. So treat the next 90 days like it's the first 90 days when you first met. Talk about things like you first met. Be interested like you first met. It's going to change your relationship. It's going to change it all.
I love that, man. It's so simple, but yet just doing it is probably the part that people either they succeed or they are stagnant. They just don't move because sometimes they don't do the simple things, and that's exactly
And
what you
here's
have been doing.
the thing: we're in a relationship, and we have these relationships, and we see people. We go to different places. We all have a conditioned past. We all have a perception of what is real based on our rituals and our beliefs and all the things that we learn. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us good. It just is, right? You have a set of beliefs and rituals based on where you grew up, how you grew up, who you hung out with, the info and the feedback that you got as you grew up. And I have the same thing. And we didn't grow up in those same circumstances. And so we're going to have a difference of opinion. We're not going to believe the same thing. But we're both human. We're both unique. We're both 400 trillion to one. And we're both here making the world a better place. And I believe that everybody wants to make the world a better place, that they've just been beaten down so far that they don't understand what they're really capable of because they don't believe in themselves, because they were told by their mom, their brother, their uncle that they suck or they're ugly or they're not tall enough or whatever it is. And we believe that. And as a result of believing that, we are forced into a life that is less than fulfilling, and we get to the end and we have regrets. And so I'm here to say, don't get to the end. I'm here to say that you have a conditioned past. Yes, we all do. What if we looked at our day through a lens that didn't have a filter on it? What if we looked at today without expectations? What if we met people today without any biases? What would happen then?
Now that the listeners have gotten a little glimpse of you, how you weren't always Superman, you once had your weaknesses, your kryptonite, and everybody is human. But the thing is that you found your superpowers. You found that there was greatness within you, as everybody else does. And when it comes to like people building everything about themselves, when it comes to like fitness, nutrition, mindset, the people that they surround themselves with, your habits and behaviors have a lot to do with it. And over time, you have set and created a set of habits and behaviors that are making you into the better version of yourself. So how does your morning routine look like for you?
Yeah. And really quickly, I still have weaknesses. I still have a lot of weaknesses. I find people that are really good at the things I suck at, and I bring them in. And I just focus on, the thing that I think we're taught in school is to just get good at everything, right? All the weaknesses, all the things, like, you suck at math. No, get good at math. You suck at English. I sucked at English. I was okay at math. But what I realize now, and this is as a result of listening to so many people, I didn't make this stuff up, go all in on your strengths, right? Go all in on your gifts. You can't be good at everything. Get the weaknesses, certainly, right? In the beginning stages, we've got to do things that we don't want to do, especially in our business. I remember when I was editing and I was doing the emails, I was doing everything. Right? It was just me, right? And there were things that were my weaknesses that I just had to do. Now I'm fortunate to have a great big team that I don't have to do the things that I suck at, that I just find people that are really, really good at those things that I suck at, who also like to do it. Now, we don't just say, oh, do the things that I suck at. We actually find people that like to do the things that I suck at, because there are people out there that love to do the things that I suck at. And we just pay them really, really good to do it, But going back to my morning routine, it definitely, I'm a big believer in protecting the first hour and the second hour, or the first hour and the last hour of my day, right? So the first hour, if you are, and I love this question. If you are going to your phone and you're checking your email and you're at social media and your text messages, you are automatically in reactive mode. You are automatically being controlled and manipulated by other people's agendas, right? From the time you get up. And what happens when you do it, right? You can't get out of it. It's just the cycle. You're checking, you go from one app to the next, to email, then you go into work every moment, every break, every chance you get, probably even one you're not supposed to, right? You're checking your email, you're checking your messages, you're looking for the validation for the dopamine hit that a text message or a like or a comment gives you. And stop that, right? Because that's the rat race. That's a rat race, and that is going to set you up for big time failure, right? Protect that first hour. And so what I do is I put on a good audiobook. Usually it's mindset related. It's Eckhart Tolle, it's Krishnamurti, Michael Singer, A New Earth, Power of Now, Untethered Soul, and stuff by Krishnamurti is usually stuff what I listen to get me started. So I'm doing that for the first hour. And while I've got that audiobook on, I'm making my pour over coffee. I'm taking my supplements. I'm getting hydrated. I make my workout, my collagen. I put 2 scoops of collagen, 2 scoops of BCAAs, and some XL into and I shake it up. And then I get ready for my workout, right? So by 8 a.m., I've got an hour in. My mindset is sharp. I go to train at 8 o'clock. I'm usually done training by about 9:30. And that's when I start my day. And that's where I'm usually pretty scheduled. I have my phone calls usually positioned to the afternoon. I've got, writing. I save my writing for late at night because that's when I find that I'm really, really good at writing. And here's the thing about this. Take a look at your schedule. Understand what you have to get done. And start looking at the optimal times in your day to do the specific tasks that you need to do. No one says that you've got to do it any certain way unless you're working for a boss that says, hey, you've got to do it this way. But as a boss, right, if you say, if you have some tasks, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I want you to optimize those tasks. I want you to be efficient, and I want you to set it up to where you can do the absolute best work. If that means taking a nap from 12 to 2 and then coming back from 2 to 6 or 8, so be it. Right. So for me, it's taking a look at my schedule and understanding that I'm going to read, that I'm going to write, that I've got to be creative, that I got to do social media, that I've got to have my meetings, and I've got to communicate with my social team once a week, and my tech team once a week, and my design team, and the customer service and the fulfillment. Understanding that I've got to do all of this, I'm looking to set up my day and my week. I'm protecting my time. I'm protecting my schedule, and I'm setting it up so that I'm doing the things that I have to do during optimal times. What do I mean by that? Right? I know that my creative writing does not happen in the middle of the day when I've got stuff going on. Right? Creative writing is at night after the kids go to bed or super early in the morning. So I save that task for those periods of time. Reading in the middle of the day, it doesn't work for me. When do I do it? I do it in the morning and at night, where I'm protecting those 2 hours, right? So we've all got the things that we need to get done in a day. Ask yourself, is this the best time to do this thing? And do that for everything that you have to do, and then shift your schedule, shift your routine to be optimal in that routine.
I like that you said a couple of points. One was that you understood that you had weaknesses. So as a great leader and as a person that wants to create influence, you recognize that you are not going to be the best at everything, and it'll be impossible for you to do everything. Therefore, you double down on your strengths or on the things that you could only do. And then you bring people in that are really good at what you suck at, right? And then the other thing that you do is that you protect your first and last hour, and the first hour of the day, you get your mind right. And then the last hour of the day, you do what you like to do that allows you to be more protective, or that's going to give you fulfillment, or just make you awesome.
I'll tell you the one thing too. The end of the day is really, really important, because what happens is you go to bed. That last hour, right? You dream, and you subconscious, right? You're taking things in subconsciously. So that last hour, oftentimes I'll fall asleep listening to I'll get my writing done, and I'll fall asleep listening to some really powerful audiobook, because that's what I want to dream about, right? I want to manifest things even when I sleep. And so really, I protect that last hour and that first hour, like with everything. Like, I protect my kids, I protect that first hour and that last hour, because they are the most crucial to my success.
I love that you said that, because I personally believe that your morning routine starts the night prior. And I learned this one from Sean Stevenson, but then I learned productive habits from Bedros Keuilian, how he starts his morning routine the night prior. So how do you start your night routine or your morning routine the night prior?
So I don't make big checklists or big lists. I don't work that way. I know who I need to talk to every single day. That's kind of become habitual. The thing that I'm asking myself 3 questions. And it's usually in the morning when I get up. It's, what am I excited about today? What am I grateful for today? And the last question is, what am I committed to getting done? Right? I think we pack on these big to-do lists, and then what? There's no real priority. And so we're just crossing stuff off to cross stuff off. You get to the end of the day and you're like, well, that really wasn't important. That really wasn't important. And there's this 2 or 3 things that never get done. So why not say, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I'm committed to getting done today that I know if I get done, it's going to have the biggest impact on my day, and I'm going to be most fulfilled at night? And so those are the 3 questions I ask myself. And I start my day like that. So I don't do a lot of preparation before I go to bed. Okay. I do creative writing before I go to bed. I listen to a good audiobook before I go to bed. And then I go to bed. That's just been my routine.
And I love also that you listen to something very empowering and inspirational or powerful at night, because it's funny. I stumbled into this by accident. I've noticed that how I go to sleep dictates how I sleep and how I start off my morning. So same thing, I'm actually listening to Conversations with God right now before going to sleep. And it just gives me a lot of peace. It feeds my spiritual side, and it allows me to go into like a deeper sleep. And there's like this calmness about it. And it allows me to wake up more full of energy and powerful. So I completely agree with you on that. And I've noticed that you love listening to audiobooks. So that's a big piece. I always tell people like listen to audiobooks. It's the liquid form of knowledge. You consume it quicker, you can digest it faster.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it. I love it. And here's the thing: what people don't oftentimes, right? And I recommend this often, right? Read, listen to audiobooks. A lot of people will say, well, if I gotta always go back because I'm doing something and I just don't get it, or I just it just I'm like, it doesn't matter if you get it, right? Because subconsciously, even if you have an audiobook, a powerful audiobook going on in the background, subconsciously you're picking that up. So even if you don't learn and hear every word for word, right? There's going to be some moments where you're like super focused and you pick it up. But even just having it on in the background, having it on in the car, even if you're not paying close attention, you're still absorbing it subconsciously. And there's a lot. It's just it's very overlooked. People don't realize that if I'm not paying attention, I don't get it, I don't write it down, then it doesn't do me any good. And I don't believe that.
and right now, what are like your most recent listens that just completely? Oh, what are your most recent books, and what is like your one favorite book that you go back to over and over?
I go back to Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, over and over and over again. It's almost like part of my morning routine where I'm listening to some part of
Mhm.
that. That's probably had the biggest impact in my life in terms of being present, living in the now, appreciating and being grateful. That's really transformed my life. So that's the one that I go back to over and over and over again. I also go back to Untethered Soul. I go back to Christian Marty stuff. I always go back to that. And then I'm also reading Principles by Ray Dalio. I'm reading
Good one.
Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Um, what else am I? What else am I cycling through? Wired to Eat by what's his name? The ex CrossFit guy. Rob, is it Rob? No.
Yeah, Rob. I
Yeah.
forgot
So
his name.
the four. Usually, I'll touch 3 or 4 books every single day. Um, you know, 30 minutes. It's like 2 minutes, 2 hours every single day is dedicated to getting information, so one way or another.
I love that. I once was coaching one of my guys, and he was saying like, sometimes I just have like those thoughts, like those not negative thoughts, but like those doubts, like those thoughtful doubts. I'm sorry, that doubtful thoughts, and I tell them, don't listen to them. Listen to something else, like put on an audiobook. And that actually has been like a great practice. That is also the reason why I love and I tell people like just listen to audiobooks, because sometimes the audiobook that's going on in your head is not good for you. Therefore, put on something that is going to help you, and it's actually going to rewire how your brain functions.
Yeah, and in those moments, just watch the thoughts, right? Don't judge them, don't criticize them, don't condemn them.
Mhm.
Watch them for what they are, because you're not your thoughts, right? Thoughts come and go. Nothing that comes and goes is real, and so you're not those thoughts, right? That's just it. Just is, and everybody deals with those thoughts again based on the conditioned past, what their parents said, the memories, the taste, all the different things, right? And so the way that you mitigate through those thoughts, saying, okay, hey, this is a thought right now. I'm just going to watch it. I'm going to sit behind it. This is stuff that I learned from Eckhart Tolle. Instead of coming out and judging it, and criticizing it, and making a problem out of it, I'll just sit behind it. I'll be still and I'll watch it. And usually, what happens is we watch the thought, feel the emotion, and observe the reaction. And instead of being the reaction, right, automatically we get the self doubt, or something happens, and we go binge eat, or we go and we react to something. Instead of being the reaction, just observe the reaction inside, and you'll start to dissolve that self doubt and those disbeliefs pretty quickly. And then again, right, make some progress. You want to start, suffocating that even more. Make progress. Open a new book. Get in a new environment. Meet new people. That's the way to do it.
I love that. Yeah, man. You have definitely done a lot of work, like in your spiritual side, in your mental side, and then in your health side. So, just for those people that are wanting to leave their jobs and maybe want to pursue something different, like going into the online world, just to tap a little bit into the business, not too much, but just enough to get them started, get get them pushed and building that momentum, what would be your advice to them? It's like, okay, they got that hunch. They know that they want to leave their jobs and they want to pursue something and create their own brand, create their own business. What would be your first steps for them to do?
I got a lot of thoughts here. So first thing is, if you are looking for purpose, purpose happens through experience. You don't find your purpose binge watching Netflix. You don't find your purpose at a dead end job. You find your purpose by going out and having new experiences. Sometimes purpose happens through tragedy. Most of the time, it happens all the time, whether it's tragedy or not, it happens through an experience, right? So if you don't know what you're supposed to do, you haven't done enough, right? You don't know until that thing happens. I didn't know 6 years ago that I'd be here today as a fitness influencer and somebody making some of the best supplements on the planet. I didn't know in 5 years that I would do $25 million in revenue when I first started, right? What I focused on, and this is also a nugget too, because what happens when we find this purpose, right? We are so focused that we're so focused on the wealth pillar, on creating that financial freedom, right? We forget about our relationships and we forget about our health. So what I've done over the last 6 years is I've focused on all the pillars, right? I focused on my relationships at home with my family. I focused on relationships with my friends and those closest to me. I learned how to communicate better. I learned how to pick up on certain frequencies. I learned body language. I learned how to communicate. I also did amazing in terms of revenue and profit and success and building a fitness empire. And then I've also taken care of my health, right? So I'm in the best possible place. Had I only focused on one of those things, right? Imagine if I only focused on wealth. Sure, maybe I would have done $50 million, but my relationships wouldn't be as good and my health certainly wouldn't be as good. So I would focus just on my health. Maybe I'd be a physique competitor, but I wouldn't have my relationships wouldn't be there and I wouldn't have the wealth that I have. If I just focused on, the relationships piece, then I can't build my business. I can't provide for the people that are important in my life. And I can't stay around long enough because my health isn't intact, right? And that's why I say those are the three foundational pillars, right? Health, wealth, and relationships. You feed it, you feed all of those. You start to look for environments that are conducive to the success and the growth in each one of those pillars. That's how you're going to make major, major strides. And to answer your question in terms of what I would do, social media is the biggest opportunity of our lifetime, at least my lifetime.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with social media. There's kids growing up with it. Kids know how to do YouTube and iPads and all this stuff way better. There's 10-year-old kids out there that know how to do video and things better than I do. We're living in the best times of our lives with this technology and where we're headed. If you're not utilizing technology, if you're not putting out some message, right, then you're doing yourself and the world a disservice because you have a story. And going back to the people who don't get started because they think that the thing that they're going to do is saturated and they could never do it. You can't, because even in a saturated market, like when I went into fat loss, the reason why I was successful is because I shared my story. While fat loss is very consistent, right? My story is not. People buy into your story. They buy into your authenticity. They buy into people who are vulnerable, who are not afraid to show the pimple on their forehead, who are not afraid to share that they were a coke addict. They're not afraid to share that they sucked. Because I think at one level or another, we've all sucked. We've all had down moments. We've all had our depressed states. Right? It's how you're going to rise above that. Because here's the thing, right? You can only die one of two ways. You can die pushing forward. You can die holding back. One leads to happiness, fulfillment, achievement, and purpose, ultimately legacy. The other one leads to regret, remorse. And you get to the end, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be looking back saying, man, I could have pushed a little bit harder. Or I could have pushed. Right?
Love it, man. So what I got from you was, before going into anything, is first ask yourself the questions of what's going to make you happy, right? And then as soon as you find like what's going to make you happy by having a well-balanced life, then asking the questions, what is it that I'm passionate about? And what is it that I could talk about all day, all night, and turn that into a vehicle to help people? And then combining those two together, you're going to find your path, right? So first finding who you are as a person, and then allowing people to exposing and sharing to let other people know who you are as a person, so they could come to you and gravitate and learn from you.
Absolutely. And things, your purpose is going to shift, right? My purpose 6 years ago
Mhm,
is
mhm.
different than my purpose now. Initially, I just wanted to help people do what I did, right?
Yeah.
And then I said I wanted to help a million people, right? And we did that. And now I want to reverse the health trends. I want to be known as the person who comes in and disrupts the health and wellness space, who is known for reversing the declining health trends here in the US and across the world. I want to be known like Elon Musk is known for disrupting the automobile space. I want to be known for disrupting the health and wellness space. I say Michael led the way. Michael led the way. He paved the way. And now there's fitness influencers and there's people all over the world that are following in his footsteps to make a difference. Because here's a scary stat, Jose. If we do nothing, if we don't change anything, in 12 years, 11 years now, by 2030, 1 out of every 2 people are going to be obese. 1 out of every 2. Right now, 19% of kids ages 2 to 16 are obese. My kids, ever since I became a father, my kids are the most important thing in my life. Setting them up for success is the most important thing in my life. And I know that we have a huge job to do if we're going to create a world full of health and abundance and opportunities, because people are dying at younger ages. They're dying and they're connected to tubes and and medications and that vicious cycle. And so for me, it's spreading awareness as far and as wide as I can to people like you and to people, to other people, so that we can leave this world a better place, and so that our health and the things that we eat don't end up killing our race.
And I also want to share with people, my experiences being around you, because I got to invest in you first, and then afterwards you allowed me to come into your world, and I learned even more, by going into your home and going into like your work environment and meeting your people, and then also you come into my home. And the things that I've learned from you was, one was, everything that you do, you want to do with purpose, right? Because I remember I would have a journal, and I was excited to show you, like I was doing like, I think it was called, I forgot what the journal was, but basically every day I would write down like my thoughts, and I showed you, and you were like, What's the purpose here?" Like, you're just kind of like writing bumbo jumbo. Like, there's nothing specific about the goals that you want to achieve today. So you were very specific and purposeful in how you see things. Like, you don't do something unless it's going to be purposeful, or you're expecting a result from what you're doing. Another thing that I learned from you was that you do place yourself in successful environments, or in places that's going to allow you to succeed, by default, right? So you go to the best gyms, therefore you're surrounded by affluent people. You live in the best places. You shop at the best grocery stores, and you surround yourself with nothing but the best. Therefore, the only outcome is you're going to give you the best results possible. You expose yourself to the best resources. Therefore, what you produce is going to be the best. And that's a big reflection of who you are. You practice what you preach. That's another big piece, like, because you're right. There's a lot of people out in the world that say certain things. They sell you things, but then they live the opposite life. And you're a big, and you show it. You look good, man. Like, you're shredded, and you're setting a great example for your kids, for your family, and for the people that are wanting to seek out advice from someone that has done it and has gone through it. And then you know yourself. I've learned that you know yourself. You know what to stay away from, what would trigger you, and and how to access like massive amounts of energy. Like, for example, before we talked in this podcast, you have a way to pump yourself up, kind of like the way Tony Robbins, before he starts a big um, event, he pumps himself up with like tapping into all of his energy. And that's something that you do. You know how to turn yourself on, and that's a thing that a lot of people lack, is like they don't know what allows them to propel and turn on their energy and go at full capacity, so they can go full throttle without destroying themselves. And that has been the key takeaways that I've learned from you. And the biggest one is that you just execute fast. Like, don't let it linger. You don't procrastinate. you either execute it yourself or you allocate it fast so someone can execute it for you quickly so that it grabs momentum.
Freddie, Freddie's here. He knows. Is it done yet? Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I just want to like let the listeners know that the what you're saying is real. I've seen it. I'm a byproduct of your influence. And yeah, man, I just want to say that I love you, that I appreciate you, and I'm very grateful to have you in my life.
I appreciate you too, and it's very validating, obviously, to hear those things. And I just want you to continue to crush it too. And I know that your authenticity and your vulnerability is just going to take you to new heights. Let's leave your community with this thing, because you mentioned something called intent, right? And I feel like a lot of us, and this was me before 6 years ago, right? You're just walking aimlessly through life, and there's really no intent or purpose, right? Um, in everything that I do, I ask myself, why am I doing it? Why am I eating this? Why am I training? Why am I talking to this person? Not in a bad way, right? But there has to be intent. There has to be intent for conversation. My intent to this morning in conversation with my fiance was to listen, to validate, right? And so what's the intent behind everything you do? And if you don't ask why. We just, we take the path to least resistance, because, and I don't know how many, how familiar you are with the path to least resistance, but that's just the way life is, right? The water doesn't run up the rocks. It runs down the rocks, right? And so we take the path to least resistance, and until we are aware of this path to least resistance, we make changes. But then what if we're not careful, our changes and our growth become our new path to least resistance before too long, right? So it's constantly shifting, and it's constantly asking the question, why? Why am I here today? Why am I doing this? Why am I at this job? Why am I eating this? Why am I binging at night, right? What are the emotions? What's going on that make me go to the cupboard or the pantry to get food that I know is not healthy for me, but then I'm going to binge and eat anyway? Why? So if we start asking just the question, why? Why am I doing this? If we start to have more intent, we start to have and go after new environments and have more experiences, we're going to experience growth and progress and ultimately happiness. And I'll tell you what, once you are there, you become more confident, you are sharing your story more, your gifts, it all just explodes. And the spillover benefits are just insane, as I know that you know now, being in the midst of a great career and a great business.
Thank you. And before I ask you the last question, where would you like to send the listeners to, something that you are currently working on, and where can they get more of you?
Yeah, so just my Instagram, right? Like I know that you are providing with so much value. You've got, a lot of different resources. So I would just love for them to come to my Instagram page. It's Morelli's World. Maybe you can put it in the notes or put it below. I would just love to connect with all of your listeners there. You can DM me. I'm always responding to DMs. I'm in the comments. Leave me a comment. Leave me a message. Let me know you heard this. Let me know what specifically about this resonated with you most. And if there's anything that I can do, like I've told you before, here's my hand, right? Meet me halfway, grab it, and let's do this together. Let's spread this awareness and this consciousness, and leave this world a truly better place.
I love it. And for the listeners, take a screenshot of this right now and tag both of us on the Insta story so we can give you a shout out, because we want to know who's listening and we want to thank you. Also, review and let us know what was your favorite part, your key takeaway, and share it with someone that you love and appreciate in your life, because this is only going to allow them to grow, right? The universe is expanding. And when you share something that's going to be of value to you and the other person, you expand with it. And my last question, it really first starts off with the comment. I always tell everybody how you start your morning, by winning your morning, that is that's going to set you up for success for the day, right? And the three things, I have the big three things that I tell my people to always do in the morning. One is to drink water. And I learned this one from you, actually. Like, drink water within 15 minutes as soon as you wake up, super hydrate.
Yep.
The second thing is movement, right? It doesn't matter how you move, just move your body, get the heart pumping, elevate the heart rate. And the third thing is superfoods, adding superfoods, vegetables, like foods that's going to give you massive and explosive energy, right? So what was your inspiration in detox organics?
So it's funny because you mentioned superfoods, and I want to say, if you don't have the time that Jose has, to
Hmm.
make the drink that Jose drinks. I've got a chocolate superfood that is next to, I mean, there's nothing even close. It's 25 superfoods. It's raw. It's organic. My kids drink it. My family drinks it. It's great if you've got, you know, stomach issues, if you got digestive issues, if you're a girl and you're listening to this and you deal with bloat, it's great to eliminate bloat. It gives you energy, and it's literally, it tastes like chocolate milk. And so to make a long story short, as we wrap this up, my fiance was going through some big challenges with her digestive system and her gut after we had our second child, Mello, because they gave her antibiotics. And if you know anything about antibiotics, right, it should be it should be your last option, right? Because it tears open the good gut bacteria, really messes with your immune system. And so I believe antibiotics should only be used if absolutely necessary. In any event, before we had the information, she took a bunch of them and it really messed up her gut. So she would bloat after anything she ate. She would be fatigued and lack energy. She'd be depressed. And she'd just have terrible digestive issues. So much, and this may be TMI, there was days, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 days where she wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom, right? So I wanted to create something to help her get healthy. I mean, we went to holistic doctors, regular doctors, had supplements and protocols and wraps and teas and Epsom salts and everything in between to fix her, and nothing would work. And so I created this product called Detox Organics, which is a daily detox that supports your body's own natural detoxification systems, right? To give you more energy, to eliminate bloat, to ease digestion. It's a 3-phase support system, and it's also going to help you get alkaline, right? So if your body's very acidic, make sure that you get to the other side of the spectrum, right? A pH of 7 or higher is alkaline, and disease and cancer can't exist in an alkaline body. Jose, I know you know this. So it does all of these things. It is the only superfood powder of its kind, not to mention, again, it tastes like chocolate milk. So go to Detox Organics. If you can't make Jose's superfoods juice, super juice, because you don't have the time, then Detox Organics is the next best thing, and you will absolutely love it. It will give you more energy, and it'll become a routine and a staple. Every single morning we have it, and at night, if the sugar cravings come on, we mix it with some coconut milk yogurt. It's like delicious chocolate pudding. So it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. It's, you know, for the listeners, like it's a great way to really start that momentum, that those morning habits. If you don't have the time, especially now in this world, we're so busy, we're always on the go. You know, I actually personally use it when I travel, when I'm traveling or I'm on the go. And I go ahead and have like a scoop and 2 scoops because yeah, I'm making sure that my stomach has the best bacteria so that I can be the most effective and efficient in creating energy. And my biggest study, like where I study and I put the most attention is gut health. Really, like as soon as you fix your gut, because the reason why you have a lot of the problems is because of your gut. So the best way, the number one domino that's going to start the fixing of your gut is vegetables, having superfoods. Go ahead, Mike.
You know that, and I'm with you on the gut, right? Everybody is prebiotic, probiotic, make sure you get gut health. And I agree 1000%. But you know that inflammation actually starts in your digestive tract?
Mm.
It's people don't realize that because of the processed foods, refined carbs and sugars,
Hmm.
they go down through the digestive tract, inflammation actually starts there. And the reason why you aren't going to the bathroom, or you've got IBS, or you've got constipation, or you've got indigestion, is because there's inflammation in the digestive tract, right? So don't stop taking your probiotic, but you have to start supporting your digestive system. And this is what Detox Organics does. And one last thought: how much do you spend on that juice every single day? How much would you say? Forget the time, right? You know, the time is a half hour between the time that you chop everything up, you cut it, you clean it. And that I know has become a ritual for you. And I know that you actually find that's quiet time for you. And I know that that process lights you up. I understand that. But most people don't have the time that you have. And most people don't have maybe the money. So how much money are you spending on that shake every single day?
Um, I probably go grocery shopping like twice a week. Probably like it's very simple ingredients, like 15, $20 every time I hit the grocery store. So I like 40 a week.
40 a week divided by 7 is how much? Six? Six
Yeah,
bucks?
yeah, around there.
$6 a day times 30 days. Now, I'm not saying it's not worth it. 6 times 30 is $180 a month on a
Yeah,
shake, on one shake.
yeah.
Mine is about $2 a month.
There you go. So if you want to save money and time, start off with.
I will say nothing is better than the fresh veggies that nothing is better than going to the store, getting organic ingredients, slicing it up, cutting it up, being grounded with it, touching it, putting it into a juice and drinking it. There's nothing better than that. I'm not going to say my option is better than that, but we live in a busy world, and most people can't spend $180 or the time that you have on a juice every single day. So detox organics is definitely the next best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely great for the person that wants to build those habits and are just having that they're always dropping off. So consistency is always key first. So starting off with the way you break your fast is the number one thing. So by detox organics, it has allowed me to actually always be consistent when I'm traveling or when I'm busy. Because you're right, I do have that extra time that a lot of people don't, and I use it to just work on myself and like build that consistent lifestyle for myself. For those people that are starting and they want consistency in their lives, that is a great way to start off. And then for a lot of people that are listening and they're like, well, I don't really get this whole like bacteria and biome and stuff like that. This is a quick analogy. You have a matrix going on in your stomach, and when you eat certain foods, you're either feeding Neil and the team or you're feeding the Smiths. So if you're giving yourself a lot of like chips and donuts, you're feeding the Smiths and they're taking over. And guess what takes over? Your cravings. When you're giving yourself, vegetables and fresh blends and detox organics into your stomach, you're feeding the Neil team. And when they take over, you're in control.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, I have a couple, but that's a funny one. That's a fun one. People like the Matrix. Who doesn't?
Oh, I love Matrix. I could relate.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time, the value that you just have given us. And for the listeners, please rate and review and make sure to share this. And also, just say what's up to us on Instagram. We'll love to hear more from you. I have placed all the links for you in the show notes. So if you're driving, if you're jogging, don't worry about it. I got your back. Just go to the show notes when you get some time and say what's up to us.
Yeah, and brother, I love you. It's been an amazing experience, and I just want you to know that I admire you, and I'm your number one fan, man. I continue to watch you, and I'll be watching you, and I look forward to all the different, all the different successes that you have coming in your life. I'm grateful for you.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I'm grateful for you too.
Talk to you soon, brother.